Buonasera a tutti, vediamo come questa sera Micheal van Gessel, laureato in architettura e paesaggio presso l'Università di Agraria di Wageningen, ha collaborato più di 18 anni presso lo studio Becker Becker, che ha diretto dal 91 al 96. Dal 1997 esercita la propria attività come libero professionista in diversi ambiti dell'architettura e del paesaggio, dai giardini privati alla pianificazione urbana. Per vari progetti ha realizzato la riqualificazione di Vondelpark e la progettazione di Zoo ad Amsterdam. Redatto il master plan per il restauro del paesaggio circostante il castello di Gehar a Utrecht e il master plan Micheal Estate. Ha gestito l'integrazione del tessuto urbano dei cortili interni del Ministero dell'Agricoltura dell'Aia, la supervisione dello sviluppo urbano di antica area industriale dismessa nella zona di Maastricht e dell'area portuale Amsterdam. Tra i riconoscimenti internazionali, la selezione del premio europeo del paesaggio Rosa Barbara Biennale Barcellona 2008-2012, il premio di Howard nei Paesi Bassi nel 2006, il primo premio del concorso internazionale della città di Berlino per il progetto del parco Hollerstop nel 1994. Il primo premio ex aequo nel concorso internazionale della città di Parigi per il progetto del parco della Villette nel 1987. Quindi parola al nostro professor Micheal van Gessel, che è appena rientrato dagli Stati Uniti, dove è stato docente per un anno intero all'Università di Berkeley.
Grazie. Buonasera a tutti. You end with something very old, La Villette. Never mind, it's about 40 years old. La Villette. I'll do it in English and you translate sometimes if you need it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do inspirations and then I'll do some transformations. I chose the subjects and I chose the subjects because they have something to do with the subject we are doing now. So inspirations. What is important is that time is not our enemy, but our best friend. Architects always, when they end up with their building, are very happy because it is in the perfect condition and can only deteriorate. Landscapes architects always think, oh my God, this needs at least 30 years before it's something. So that's why I love doing transformations, because it is already something. But time is our friend. So we have to work with time. That makes us different to architects. A landscape architect different to architect because there's two things. There's a difference in scale. You can immediately see if an architect has done landscape art who has not gone on with landscape architect, because it's always too small. And you can see because they work more with an end view and not with an open view. What happens? This is layers of history. Like here, Azure on a wall. It is even more beautiful in time than it was originally, because it is an echo of history. But here a building which was meant, of course, to be straight, but gradually in time it sort of collapsed a little bit. But it makes it very elegant suddenly, but just a little line which is not straight, but crooked. So you learn a lot about this. This is how the sea goes onto the shore and gives this pattern. You can't design something like this. You can only make a strategy that something like this can develop eventually. These are meadows, nature. We often think we have to make things, especially landscape architect and do plantation, but often just the natural environment is beautiful in itself. Just make the conditions that something beautiful like this can develop eventually. Look at this on a volcano. Another time you can't design it, but where there's slightly more moisture, there's some vegetation. Oops, sorry, or here where the position against the sun. So you see it's always one of moisture and the other of sun or wind, that suddenly the vegetation becomes different. Not much, but very different. So elegant, so simple, so natural, so subtle. And here you can also see a stratification, water, and then the shoreline, and then the peat where nothing can grow, and then the rocks. I mean, this is you find in the landscape. Or sometimes that's gradually, but here it's very, very, it's in China, very dramatic. It's water with the agriculture, and then suddenly the mountains above it. We are landscape architects, and so I emphasize that we are architects. It's about space. And like in architecture, in landscape architecture, it's the same way. You're thinking of spaces and their content, their intimacy or grandeur or their feeling, the ambiente. You have that good word, ambiente. Environments. We create environments. They may be very harsh, they may be very traditional like this, or they may be very different or new, or here very formal, or here, this is also landscape in New York courtyard, where you see it with all the life of the density, but this is also an environment. This is also landscape. And this is a landfill near Berkeley, where you can see how the scale and the beauty of this landscape, something of the Vasca, destroyed completely. But here you have also a landfill with dirt, and then they start doing this. I'm afraid in 20 years' time it will look awful, but now it looks beautiful. Or here, this is in Chile, the biggest copper mine in the world, where you can see huge trucks, like little tiny dinky toys. This is 1 kilometer deep, 1 kilometer deep. A complete man-made, very logical, technical structure, but a beautiful landscape with a very high quality and identity. But here, as simple as this, everybody knows where we are, in the Laguna of Venice. There's only one place in the world where you have these poles, and that's in the Laguna of Venice. That gives identity, one thing. Just as flat as water everywhere, in Holland, in Greece, in wherever. But the fact that these elements are there to lead people through the Laguna gives it identity, something to recognize and to make. Everything I show, always I look. Part of your profession is to look. That's where you learn, not by doing many things, by practicing, but also by continuously looking, always, all day, all your life. This is also an environment, but man-made. Du Buffet, it's a piece of art, a little fortress in the museum of Krullenmuller in Holland, where you enter it and then you have a complete landscape. But look what he did. He just made a relief and white lines. That's all. So it is also lessons in how to restrain yourself. Beauty, like a poem, poems are made as the best poems have as little words to express the most of what you feel or what you want to show. That's also in all arts. The best art is trying to express things with as little means, with as much armor. This is Le Doux, Arc et Senant, 17th century. And with this, these are windows of the factories. That's 300 years old, more than 300 years old. And only by this symbol of a vask, which pours the salt water, which is then evaporated, and then it's sold. This is continuously in that whole project repeated. Such a beautiful signature. And so old, he understood what design was, Le Doux. But just in simple paving, this is not a decoration. It is really what they can do in a day. So they do it in a span and they put the little caillou, stones, pebbles, like that. And because you can see otherwise where the day work stopped, they always use these lines. So the technique of making a paving like that is used as decoration, not more nor less. A lesson in minimalism again. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. This is a ramp. Behind this wall is a ramp going up. Look how minimal it is and what a beautiful um, effect this has. Or here, Das house of Philip Glass, and you can see, no, not Philip Glass, Niemeyer. No, not Oscar Niemeyer. Mies van der Rohe, sorry, yeah, I'm getting all mixed up. Mies van der Rohe, and you can see how if the terrace would have been flat on the ground, it would have destroyed the effect of the building. But everything is floating. So you must be very careful in what you do and be very conceptual. It's from a main idea right up to the detail of everything. Everything floats. Also the stairs over there floats. This is Herzog and de Moron in Napa Valley, a winery. It's made one big slab in the landscape, very simple form. Everything is in this form, and it's made out of gabions. That's rocks within in wire. And why? Because that cools the wine. So it is functional partly, and partly it's used to go on with it and make one very formal element as a big bar in the landscape. One of the most beautiful buildings. This also, Louis Barragan made the plaza together with Louis Kahn. Look at it, it's only travertine on the paving. The buildings are made of concrete and wood and glass, of course, and that's all. And this very formal access where you don't see the landscape, but you do see the sea. La Jolla in San Diego, one of the masterpieces in the world. If ever you have a chance, go there and look at it. It is unbelievably beautiful. But here we are in Brasilia, the same, where all these buildings are ministries. They all are the same. It's very democratic. It was an age of the 60s where people were positive about the future. Modernism, we're going to make a better future. We're going to make a good life. And if we make our environment well, people will be well. That will be good. That wasn't true. People became very individualistic and very selfish, but the idea was very idealistic. In any case, all the ministries are all together. Everyone has its same place, no hierarchy. Every building is slightly different, but they all come into this main field, and the only thing is added is these trees along the edge. In that way, making a transition between the field and the ministries, and making sort of an ambiente intimate for people, but also an ambiente which can take very big demonstrations and all that sort of thing. Simplicity of a garden in France, 2 magnolias, and that's it. It's all about minimalism. This is Marva, Texas, where Donald Judd is a bank building of the 30s, and look at the garden. It's only made out of one plant which can take the drought. You don't have to water it in any case because we're here in the desert. Or here, somewhere here in the neighborhood, I made it in the north of Italy. But look at it's a lesson in how to design. The cementerio is there, but the wall is a result of just saying we paint the wall white and go on like that, and it follows all these memorial edicts. But look at the beautiful white line, which is a result. You can't invent that. You can't design it. It's given to you, but you must see it. That there's a beauty in it. You must see what is potentially there. And here's Versailles. I think it's much nicer when they're packed in winter than when it's over during the summer, because these statues are there, millions of those, not millions, but a lot of them, not very, very interesting. But this is more interesting. It's like Cristo avant la lettre. It's of course very funny when they do something like this because they strangle the statue without really noticing what they're doing. But this is another, it's a statue of Taft it is in the museum in Chicago. This is called Death. It is death, but nobody knows what death looks like. So he made a statue where the face is in the shadow. So that's also about showing something without showing something. Depth, vibration. There's a lot drama in it without showing what it is. Donald Judd, same place as you saw before. This is all made out of brushed stainless steel. All these cubes, and every cube has a slightly different angles in really in its interior, but they reflect each other. And in that way, the amount of these cubes makes it so very, very special. Here you can see it in its surroundings. It takes up the color. It just blends with its surrounding. It's pure poetry, but visual poetry. But here, a 19th century drawing. Now we come back to the landscape. Look how I call this lecture robust but sensitive. Is he destroying our thing? Robust but sensitive transformation. This is robust. Can't say it's not robust, but it's also very sensitive. Two rocks touching each other, like Adam and God in the 16th chapel. This is the same. It's a transformation of that idea. It's a factory where an artist just took out some of the concrete and put a plant in there. It's a temporary exhibition, but it's such a beauty also. This Cy Twombly, who makes these beautiful. He's just died last year, the year before. The American artist. It looks as though he's done this in the afternoon after his nap. He takes weeks, months to make a painting like this. He's one of the most beautiful artists there is because he really thinks of every little touch of paint and every line and every of crayon to make these beautiful pictures. But also this is Nervi, your Italian constructor in world famous constructor in concrete, who made the cathedral in San Francisco. And look at it. It is very austere, very heavy. You would think, oh, a bit heavy brutalism of that time, but really a period piece. But the best thing he did was to open up the corners where that huge structure hits the foundation. He opens it up, and the light comes through. So it becomes extremely light, something very heavy, because that's also very important that's also in the drawings of Cy Twombly. It is about masculinity and femininity, strong and sensitive, both. Find a good equilibrium between those two. That's often very important in art, architecture, landscape architecture. But also this is Oscar Niemeyer. Curitiba, Museum of Modern Art. Huge structure to make this, because the museum is up above us, above me there. But it's like a huge beam, all full of steel, so that underneath you have a plaza and a roof. And look at the strength and the tension between the two, and the landscape it relates to. Unbelievably beautiful, and a very simple gesture in that way. But also here a pool made by Thomas Church in Sonoma Valley, and here you have this it's an iconic pool, publicized all over the world and made, American dream of the 60s possible, and everybody dreamed of this. But it is a beautiful form, but the sculpture is placed in the exact good point. It touches the edges, like that rock we had just before in the drawing. It touches the edge without touching it. It is exactly placed in the right place. If it would have been elsewhere, it wouldn't have the same strength. So it's also very difficult to do it in a good way. So it's all about sensitivity, like these hands. This is another drawing of Cy Twombly, just drawing it. But you can feel the human touch. This is also, you can feel the human touch, also important in your drawings, but also in your plans. The humanity of it, not only the very hard stuff, but the vulnerable stuff. This is humanity. But also here in Lanzarote, where they have wine and they have to protect the wines from wind and everything, and to keep the moisture there, then you just use, they used to use rocks, now they just use tires, old tires. Result, a beautiful and exceptional landscape with a strong identity. Also here, the edge of a lake. You can make it very, very sharp, but this shows age. It's just gradually that is, and often people think, oh, look, this is dilapidated, should be renovated. No, the fact that it is not straight, that it grew with age, makes it more beautiful, I think, than when the edge is perfectly made in concrete or whatever. Then use of space. I'm now talked a lot about design and space, etc. But eventually we do it for people. So 100% Freiheit, 100% freedom is what we need. People want to use their space. That's why we make often. Or these are the dams in Holland, which was never intended for recreation. Look at the rocks, you can hardly get there. But you can get there by car, so people just used it that way. It wasn't intended, but they came and they used it because you could get there. This is the highway in Copacabana, which is closed on Sunday because they don't need it on Sunday. And then it becomes a huge playground because you have all this asphalt for 3-4 kilometers. Or here, the dirt, this is destroyed. When they will build this, will be destroyed and made into a park. But actually, this, what is now there, is quite nice and used a lot by people, by youngsters. You don't need so much to make a beautiful landscape. And to look at also how people use it. A little edge or a little, here, Duomo of, show this, this is the in front of the Duomo of Milano. One of the most beautiful spaces. I'm here on top of the Duomo. If a beautiful plaza functions well if there are thousands of people, but it also functions well if you're there at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're all alone. That's the criterion of a beautiful plaza. Here people, it's just beautiful material, well designed. There's an edge with a few stairs. I have to go there? Oh, sorry. Better? Sorry, Susanna. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, and then there's an edge where people sit. So you have, when there's nobody, there's not a bench which is empty. No, there's just an edge. There are a few stairs. Nothing is empty because it's not meant as a bench, but it's used as a bench. And why is it so well used? Because you have the Duomo behind you. You feel protected. You can't be better protected than having the Duomo behind you and its beautiful facade. I will turn around a bit like this. Here, nature taking over mankind. You can see mankind taking over from nature with the new polders. And here see a building in Sao Paulo where you can see the inside is completely as it should be, a really good museum with lovely rooms for art, for modern art. But the outside is like many buildings of the 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, very eclectic. The architects only did one intervention. Mind you, also with our projects, maybe only one intervention is needed. And he took off the stucco, and in that way showing the beauty of the walls, showing its history, and making it more decorative and more interesting than a stucco facade, and in a great contrast with what is inside, which is very functional, because then the art must speak and not the building. Or here in Amsterdam Park, where Agence Terre used the pattern of all these railroad lines and made it into a natural park, which has an echo of its history. Or here the High Line, and there's finally also a transformation. The High Line used to look like this. I don't know who's been there, but I've been. This is how it looked like. Place of melancholia, as James Corner calls it. And this is what he made out of it, which is very, very beautiful, because it is used much more than it used to. We can't have it as this. But what's beautiful is that the plantation resembles nature, but it's not natural. It is very... And the paving has something to do with railroad lines. You get something that goes up and down and has this beautiful form. You can see of coming from down and coming up like train tracks. So this is absolutely brilliant. You can see how it also integrates with railway lines. So here is a promenade, and it used to be a railroad line, a line becoming a promenade. That's a transformation. But suddenly it becomes a park. Suddenly it becomes sissy, fussy. They need plantations, so they don't have enough earth. So then they make planters which are that high to have enough earth for these birch trees. Suddenly it loses its arm, its soul, its concept is lost here. Here also, why on heaven's sake do you need a lawn? Has nothing to do with the High Line. We have all parks with lawns, thousands of them. Nearly every park has a lawn. Now the High Line shouldn't have a lawn because it doesn't suit the promenade, neither the ambience of the High Line itself. Enough. Antonio, I don't know how long I do it, but I just go through some, and I can always finish when you have fed up. Kortenhof. This is a landscape. This is the landscape of the 17th century. Amsterdam needed sand to make its canals. We got the sand. You can see the sandy hills there, and the waterway was the way to get the sand to Amsterdam because we didn't have roads. Everything went by boats, and then they took these concessions, and people could take the sand out, buy it, take the sand out, and then they made these beautiful, beautiful mansions. It is not yet a UNESCO monument, but it should be there now. And you can see on the other side this peat landscape typical of the center of Holland. You can see it in the beginning of the 20th century. You can see Hilversum, you can see all these mansions, and you can see the landscape of peat and lots of water. And this is how it looks like now. You see the word Kortenhof. I should have had I forgot my thing to point out. Maybe I'll have one tomorrow. In any case, Kortenhof is where the edge is. And there is a problem there. Here are these mansions along these estates. And this is the other side where there's the peat landscape with the farms. And this is that peat landscape. You can see it nearly floats in the water. But there's also a drawback. There's glass houses. There are these sort of half-empty glass houses and sort of people working there. And then there's this. This is a dump. In the 1960s and 70s, they dumped all sorts of not too bad stuff, but bad enough. And they dumped it here, and that's what it looks like. So here you can see that dump. You can see Kortenhof above there. You can see the line, the water, the straight line, Kortenhof, and its building there, and you can see the old road, the peat road. And there is the dump. they asked what to do with this dump, because it is not that it pollutes the water and or the but it is it has to be somehow preserved, must be kept in place. But who's going to pay for it? So first, the qualities. The qualities are this peat landscape and a few paths going through. These are the disqualities. The dump in yellow and all this activity which is not needed on the side. While this is a very on both sides, it's very natural landscape which is high value and which is, as we call, protected area. And in the middle is this eyesore. But nobody had the money, so what we said is we have to build there. Please make us a plan that we can build so that we have money to protect and consolidate this dump, this landfill. So how do you build in a landscape? This is 19th century. By building really in the landscape. That's what I think it should be. But this is not an idealistic landscape, not like here. This is Zocher, this is an idealistic English landscape. What is our landscape now? Here we have also, you can build like that, because at first they thought we needed about 100 people living there, 100 houses together. How do you place 100 houses in that landscape without destroying it? Here is an example. This is 67 houses, very big one. So you can hear Bath. This is very classical. It's an example that all those houses together have more impact and do something which is extra. They look all at this beautiful meadow in front of them, this green, this crescent. So it is the fact that it teaches you how you can do such urbanism. So and then it is also important that they want sort of also, the people who asked me to think about it, a sort of a new estate. They thought, oh, we make a house and that's enough, but 100 people in one house, it's immense, it's not like it. But you can see the peat landscape as it is. So what I said is we're going to enhance the peat landscape and on the other hand, make very precise where the dump is. Nobody wants to live on a dump, first of all. Second, the dump must be consolidated. And third, it is another landscape. The soil is different. In the water, other things grow than on a level which is 1 meter higher, especially one that's a great difference. 1 meter means that you have another vegetation, complete other vegetation. So first of all, we accepted this unbelievable, beautiful form, which goes like that. Not trying to make it embarrassing. This is really where the dump was. So accept it. Don't make those edges more flu. Don't try to hide the edges. Enhance it. As a carpenter always says, a good carpenter says, where there is a joint, show it. If you try to hide it, it will always reappear. Where there is a joint, show it. In the landscape, it's exactly the same. Where there is a joint, show it. So then I tried all sorts of things, where and how. This is very traditional. This is less traditional because it follows the form. This is more concentrated. This is even more concentrated. This is all facing the south, maybe very interesting, just a slab. This is a broken up slab. This is even more broken up. So finally, this is the plan. Maybe this is more clear. This is one plan which they wanted, where it's broken up in 1, 2, 3 buildings, and this is my preferences in making really a slab. So I show this one. What we did is, I really should have had this right. We enter there by an avenue. You can see there where the trees are. So we are at a distance, because when you are in a state, when you are living special in the landscape, like kings and queens lived and royalty lived, you want to be seen, because look how important I am, so people must see you, but you are at a distance. So that's very important psychological. So there is a distance. And you can do parking and all that thing on the dump, but you live beside the dump in a strip. Facing all south, in the back of you, the dump, in front of you is beautiful landscape and surrounded by the landscape. The dump itself is consolidated by water around it and by enhancing the form, because it must be covered with 1 meter of soil. So there is a difference. Huh? There was already a difference, but we put a meter on it. The soil comes from all those waterways that I made. Put it on it and enhance the form by planting oak trees. So I planted all these oak trees. So in the landscape, you will even see it more rising. That's the only thing. And inside is just pathways and grass, meadow. And people can just go wherever they want. So this is Groenewald. This is another scale. It's close to town in Dordrecht. I show you that as an example of transformation. Here you have Dordrecht, and we are there somewhere in the middle where you can see. This is what it looks like. It's very medieval. It's where the Dutch government was first elected or first came together as Holland. So this is really where Holland started, in that building you can see there. But this is the cloister garden, made in the 70s. You can enter by these sort of porches, which is already difficult. There's all, and this, and this. And then you have gardens there, and all backsides of houses. You can see it. Sort of sad. And then risen grass and little places to sit, empty benches, always empty. There's a bench. This is the plan. So there you have the high rise, there you have the cloister garden, here you have a playground, and you have grass patchwork. There's no all-over view of it. There's nothing really that takes everything together and really shows something, how things are possible. So this is what it was, space with 4 different elements in it. And I said, no, we should make one idea. So this is the idea. Because it's to raise the grass and to make one element, a raised grass. Why raised grass? Because grass can be used by kids. It's a very nice thing because it is out of the dirt of the street, and you can sit on the edge. And that in that way it defines the whole space. And the space was quite difficult. You can see it's sort of, it's not square, but at an angle. So, and I thought, let's do those 2 squares, and like paper, tear it in 2 pieces, and one piece goes one direction, and the other piece goes the other direction. And exactly the tear, which is on both sides, is then opens up to give room to trees which were existing. These are the trees that are existing, and make that edge, that cut, very, very precise. I always like to make things that the architecture of the landscape is also its function. So integrate, not make a landscape and then think, oh, we need benches and we need water and we need this and we need that. No, already from the beginning you think, how will people use it? And then the edges where all these gardens are, to make that transition less hard by planting magnolias and corners, and plants that people, or trees, shrubs that people use in their own garden. In that way, it is sort of a through transition from one to the other. I wanted to build very narrow houses, but that the municipality didn't allow. I thought we have to have eyes on this place. So we're going to build all around the fences. We're going to build houses which are very long, very thin. Lovely, like living on a houseboat. Very thin and very long. And all around, instead of these trees. But that didn't succeed. I would have loved that idea. Here is the design after going on with it. And here you can see it. All natural stone is very expensive in Holland because it must be imported, because we don't have that. So all this is 1.5 meters wide, and every one is different. So this crack, which is conceptually done like that at the beginning, made me go on with the concept and made this the reason why it's like that. And the reason I didn't invent it, it was part of the process.
You can see the space and the trees that are now suddenly they're there naturally because they were there and they're still there, and you can't put earth on the roots of trees, and that's why we have to leave that open. But it's also in one of the main plazas in between. And you can see how children use it and play with it. Another transformation of a park in Vlaardingen. This is how the park looked like. It was sinking in the peat. Everything sinks in Holland because of everything goes gradually down. Maybe a centimeter per year, but that's 10 centimeters in 10 years. So it nearly drowns, and that was the problem. It's drowning. Please do something. So there was a dike in between, and you can see this is how the park looked like. And it was planted. It was made part of it. I'll show you later. But this is what it looked like, and part of it is really floating. You can see how these trees grow is a wonder, a miracle that they grow in such small soil with all the, because roots don't go into the water. So you can see here you have deer camp, then you have at Hof, which is the park which is made in the 19th century and transformation of a park of the 17th century with the carré, and then you have a park made in the 1930s, Oranje Park. So that was, and that Oranje Park is lower, is in another polder, and in between is that dike. So here I said we have to enhance the entrances, because you come from there, so make the entrances really visible and make the differences in the park evident, because we have that. Try not to make it one park, but make it one park functionally, but aesthetically and as an ambience, as an environment, make it as different as possible. So here is my design, but it's too much to see in one go, so I'll show you the different aspects. Here you can see the water. Water is very important. And stagnant water is very good and very positive, but if it stands still, it means sick. Everybody who has pools with just standstill water has microbes. It's no good. So water that ends like that is very negative. Maybe people don't realize it, but they know it. It's part of negative feeling. And then you have silly islands in it. So this was the water pattern, which is, of course, quite difficult. And nobody knew why exactly they made it like that, or why they didn't connect, for example, that pool with that. I think they just lost out of money and made a dam instead of a bridge. So this is what I proposed, is to connect all those waterways into one waterway for two reasons. One, that it was not stagnant, that it would flow. And then maybe it doesn't flow, but you have the feeling it flows. Second, that every part of the park, because taking away the earth would mean that we slightly put more earth on the park, and that water falling on the park would immediately go into the adjacent water body. So in that way, there wouldn't be stagnant water on the surface. So that was the reason why I made more water. So here you can see this is being built and how huge that really is and how deep it is. This is the pole. There's another part than the one we saw before. But this is while we were making it, and later we made the water higher. And here you can see it in the end, nearly finished. Other thing is plantation. And oh no, this is about the roads. You can see that you have tarmac, and then you suddenly have, for none reason, who would ever like to go there? Women wouldn't go in there. If you're very threatened in the park like that, you don't have any overview. Anybody can be in the bushes trying to attack you. So I don't have a good feeling about that. So who else? So this is what the word black is asphalt, or playing field, and gray is how do you call that, gravel, and that's also in this part. And there was, so we thought, and we made this to enhance the difference between the 19th century park, that was gravel, and to make all the parts in simpler, but all the parts in the park of asphalt. Why asphalt? Here you use it, and in America and in England you use it a lot, but in Holland it's considered very negative because it is connotated with streets and with cars, while asphalt is a wonderful material. First of all, it is natural. It's a product, rest product from our gasoline industry. Second, you can make beautiful forms with it. Thirdly, it is very well used because how do we use our parks now? Skiing, roller skating, drawing. So and for all the invalids and everything, handicapped people. Well, now I'm handicapped, so I really feel it. It is a wonderful material. So and it doesn't need maintenance. So this is what we did. So here we have it, and it's also beautiful in contrast with green. So you can make these wonderful forms with it. And you can, as you see, we took a lot of shrubs away so to make it open. The edges were like this. It could be anything, a grave, a cemetery, allotment, anything could be behind here. But a park, a city park, entrances like this, I mean, unbelievable. And then the relationship with the neighborhoods like it. Parks in the 19th century were considered as oases of good habitat, goodness in a world that was very dangerous. But they became very closed. And in that way, areas which are no-go areas. Now we tend to open them up. Why? Because then when you're in the park, you can feel the city around you and know that people see you. And when you're outside the park, you are confronted. It's the best advertisement to say, oh, later on I take my kids and I'm going to go and play there or walk there because it's a beautiful day. So you must have that relationship. So you can see here also in this 37 park, they had all these edges. I mean, very uninteresting. So this is how it looked like, all this greenery. And you see it has no structure and it closes the park off from its surroundings. And this is what I made out of it. So it goes with the pathways and the water bodies and makes a new composition where you can go through it, and there is shrubs, but it's not always, and you go quickly through it, and you can see already the other edge where it's openness again. So you feel much more safe in this park. So here it is. It's a very open park which has now much more view of these beautiful trees that were I didn't have. I just showed them. They disappeared in all the greenery. Then we have all this stuff. You know, people we want to do sports, and we want to have this, and we want to have that, and we have to have baseball, and everybody gets this little place. And we want to have skateboarding, and so they make skateboarding. They flunk a piece of asphalt there, and they put some traditional or things that they buy in the catalog, and then it's for the kids. Terribly unsensitive, unkind, unloving. So this is what it is, all these different elements. And this is what I made out of it. A few ones, and I show you the pointed one is a field which has exceptional underground, where they can have events, because they have every year a huge event, and that's the place to do it. And the black spot is what I did together with Carve, and that's a state-of-the-art skate field. Here you have it. It's a landscape. So they wanted that, and the mayor said we must keep it because it's in a very good place, way out from everybody. It's right in the corner of the park, and nobody is disturbed by it. Very negative idea. But in any case, I thought now we keep it in this place, but we make really something. So I took a lot of the money I had of my budget to really make a thing with the state of the art. And here you can see it from the side, and it is an unbelievable success. They're all playing there, and they think it is wonderful. They also, the people doing it also were in the committee of designing it. I did it with a special designer of these playgrounds and the kids, and said what was going to be in it. So that's and it's very contained. It's an element in the park. It doesn't destroy the park. There's no fences around it. It is lovingly made for them. and they feel it, that's made for them. And they stay there. They don't need to be anywhere else in the park with their skateboards. This is so good that they really love it. We are working on a memorial, a place of memory, series of Moscow the question. So I thought maybe I should show you this. National Monument of the Concentration Camp Vught. Here you can see a picture of the concentration camp just after, in 1944, made by the Canadians. And you can see the concentration camp, and right at the top is the crematorium. It wasn't an extinction camp, it was for all Dutch intellectuals and Jews, and also children, of the intelligentsia of Holland. They didn't want them to be walking around the streets, and so they put them all in here. And here you can see it enters with from there down there with a long road of a kilometer. Sorry, here you can see that long road of a kilometer, right, going to the end. And then at the end, there's a parking space. And then you go a little bit further, and then you have, this is the monument, that is national monument when I started. And then you have some towers, and then there's a recreational path along it, and then you look, this, and then I look to the right, no, to the left, sorry, and then here we have the prison, which is the most protected prison in Holland, because they're all the drug dealers, not dealers, but the main people of them, who hire helicopters to get out of the prison and God knows what. So it's very, very protected. And next door, you can see there. Can you see the barbed wire of the German concentration? It looks cute, beautiful, just very. Is that all? So it's very difficult in such a harsh environment what to do. So I thought, oh, this is terrible. What can we do with this? You can see it here. You have the wall, and then there's the wall, and then you have the rest, which is only a slightly little corner of the old concentration camp, and that was the memorial. And then you had everything in there. You had all sorts of memorials, and everybody has and barracks, which were not barracks in itself, but it showed how a barrack looked like, and all these, you see these elements explaining it all. It was like a zoo. I mean, you see all this explanation, and benches and amphitheaters and statues, and everybody, you know, the Jews and the people who were in the resistance, and there were kids taken away with one transportation. They all died. Terrible things happened, but everyone had his own say in it, and altogether it was junk to be saved. Here you can see there were tablets I will show you later, and they were with all the people that were executed, and they were there, and some idiot in the 80s put tar on it. Nobody knows who did it, but in that way destroyed them all. So they had to do it all over again, 30 years after the war. And they kept it in the crates, and they were just there, you know, with again an explanation why they were there and what had happened. So they kept it. So they are in crates. This is where they came from, and this is the renewed one. This was in the woods. So this is where they were. People from the resistance were executed. So this is really the memorial of that. But it is beside the concentration camp. And in the concentration camp, they took the cadavers of the ones they shot and put this on this table. They used to be full of medical apparatus around it. And they put the corpse on the table and dissected it, because the Germans were very thorough. They wanted to know which bullet had really killed somebody. You know, they were very precise in all these things. Everything was gone except for this table, which is made out of terrazzo. Couldn't be taken away. And in this empty building, there was only this. So I showed the foundation. I said, first of all, they asked me, what do you think of it? And they had plans which were terrible. So I said, I'll take this assignment on two conditions. that I have completely freedom what to do, and that I get 2 months to speak to everybody. I knew exactly what I wanted, to take everything away. But I needed the people to trust me. So I spent every time with every group at least an afternoon or a day, just staying, listening. And everybody said, "Oh, it's such a junkyard because all the things of the others are there." So I gradually sort of knew how they. And I said to the board, "This is my concept. It is this in all its nakedness. This is original and it's powerful. And the whole campsite should be like this. What is original stays, and the rest goes away or goes into a museum, an information center, and the rest shouldn't interfere. It must be a place of serenity, which it was not at all." So this is the idea. There you have that where they shot people. That's that line, and there's of course a little, and then this is how you enter. What I did is I talked to the prison camp, to prison itself, that they would take the parking a little bit away, so as to give more space to our little corner where the only building is the crematorium, and that we would make a building which was also the center of the information center, the museum, and that building would cut off the life of all those cars and parking and all the real life of now, and then you would go through the building like a sleuth, and then you go out of the building, and then you're suddenly in this site, which is the campsite. So I needed something to transform it, and I asked the architect Felix Klaus to help me do it. And I said it must be a wall in which is a museum, and not a museum. It is just a wall. That's how it should have the concept. So here we have it. Oh, it's not very clear. This is the wall. So it has this place where the bricks is still used, and we have just this concrete paving to get people in, and then there's this wall made out of actually Italian bricks. Is very thin with a very big cement layer. So it is gray, but it's also soft at the same time, different from the others. And here you can see the entrance. He did it very well, exactly what you mean. He really understood what I was asking for. And just one entrance, very austere, very simple, no fuss. Sorry. And then you go through the museum, and then suddenly you are confronted with this in the most advanced way, because it's very small. But suddenly there's a window, and you see this, and then you know this is a concentration camp, because this is, and you don't see, you're not so. And then we made a model of it on the floor of how the concentration camp, and that little bit tiny building in the end, that's the only building that's left of the concentration camp. And somewhere else we found one of the barracks where there were chickens in it, and somebody had found it that it was an old shed of here, and it was reconstructed. So here you can see it together with the wall, and suddenly that wall enhances the austerity of this site without interfering with it. And then at the end of the pathway is only one monument which I kept, and that was a Jewish monument commemorating the 87 kids that were transported in one go and were killed within one day. So that was a very powerful monument, and I thought that should be there. And you can see what I did is clean up everything. Just leave the trees because they were nice. Just clean it up and just leave it. Let it speak for itself. Don't interfere with people's own relationship with the site. Don't interfere. Don't say, well, oh, what is all going on? They will come. And then when you go back, you see the barrack there on the left-hand side, and you have the path, and then you go enter again the museum, which is also a wall again, but there's also an outdoor patio. And you see what is there are those slabs which were packed in crates, and we carefully took them away from where they were and put them into the museum. And no notes, nothing else. In the museum you can find information But this was just, and you can see the light coming from above. It's outside and inside at the same time. And through there, you go back. So I used what I found there and found powerful and was reality and was real and not just a metamorphose or something or a memorial or an explanation, but only the real things I used for this. And in that way, it starts to be very empty, and in that way, speaking of something without explaining it. You can see it close by. And he, oh yeah, you have more. I thought nothing. You can see the cranes. But no, they say, oh, we have to clean them. Oh, no, don't touch them. Please don't touch them. Antonio, one more project? Is that okay? Whatever you think. I don't know how long I'm talking. This is not realized yet. It is the garden of the 21st century, and it is an international contest, which I won with a young landscape architect, Delva Landscape, who helped me with it, and with Micheal van Gessel, who is the architect. This is the Lazinski Park in Warsaw, which is the King's Park of Warsaw. It's very old and it has gardens of every time, 17th century, 18th century, beginning 19th century, end of 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, middle of the century, Stalinistic, end of the, and then finally they wanted the garden of the 21st century, whatever that may be. So they asked, they did an international competition, and that's what we won. And the site is that triangle there. I made it into a triangle, but that's a very difficult site. It's just a little sliver on the side. But this is the main avenue. You can see the main avenue. It goes right from one side to the other, King's Garden. This is the Chinese alley, and to the left you see the site. Sorry, to the right. The glass houses. It was an area. It still is an area where they maintain the park from. And this is what it looks like from the point. You see here the right-hand side, the Chinese alley, the glass house at the end, and on the right-hand side, shrubs, and then the city. So this is, the idea was really, the idea was to enhance the form of the space, not to make something else. So to enhance the edge along the street by planting lots of trees to enhance the Chinese alley and to really accept that very difficult triangle form. They also asked, that's why I asked an architect, Micheal van Gessel, a very good architect, sorry, to build the building, because at first they said we want a 21st century garden with a pavilion. Then I discovered it wasn't at all a pavilion, it was a museum, an art hall, a huge amount of square meters. So this is about it. I mean, so I said, it really becomes a museum with a garden instead of a garden with a pavilion. So the idea again is to fold the landscape, to make a landscape that folds up and down, and to put the museum underneath this folded landscape. You can see it, folding it, and then you can make something very long which gradually folds up and folds down. So that's the concept. Here we have the idea. And then what is that landscape? Always our idea. Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Susanna. So you can see the folded landscape and the museum as part of it. So it becomes not a garden and a museum, but a museum underneath the garden. But what is the garden of the 21st century? Gardens are always the ideal of what we are present. The French garden is formal, or the medieval garden is very close. French garden is very formal. We are strong and we can take the whole of nature. Then we have the English garden where we make an idealistic landscape, which is even more beautiful than the reality. And then we have the 20th century garden, which is a mixture of formal and looking for a new way and formal and modernistic and formal, sort of modernistic formal and landscape, English landscape in sort of rudimentary form. But what is it now? For me, it is very much that we are on the verge of really accepting nature as a beautiful element in our environment. Getting nature and real nature, not fake nature, into the cities. Making things more maintainable, more sustainable, by going with nature instead of against nature. By enhancing nature and making it more beautiful. And by maintaining it, not by pruning and all sorts of things, but by careful coaching of the plantation. So I suggested a huge meadow. This is one meadow, which the whole year round something grows and dies, and something goes up and dies. So it's also about time. And then at the end, it is also in winter beautiful. So it's always beautiful in the whole seasons. Maybe not for somebody who loves color, and it's very difficult to sell it because they accept this anonymously. But now they realize what they have accepted. Oh, will it be a natural garden without begonias and God knows what? No, it's going to be a natural garden, and that means only very simple flowers and not, it's colorful, but not always colorful. So that's the idea. So here we have it in perspective. And here you can see the garden from the Chinese alley. This is the wall with the entrance. This is the garden. It's not very clear, but here you can see the idea. With paths on both sides and the garden undulating up and down, up and down. So here you can see a cross section, another cross section. This is the museum underneath. It's quite a big thing, you can see 3 stories high. But that's the museum with its terrace outside. So this is how the landscape is above it. This is underneath on ground floor level, where you can enter from one side and to the other side. You saw those entrances, and then you go down. Oh wait, sorry. Then you go down into a huge hall underneath where the exhibitions are, temporary exhibitions of art. So here you can see the cross section is not two, but it's two stories, one underneath the ground and one on top, and the garden on top of that. And here you can see the longitudinal section. You can see how the light goes right down to the bottom area. So this is a vision of that terrace going and the path in the park. Now we're working on it. Oh, this I showed already, or am I going backwards again? The walls will be made of this material, of a natural stone with lots of cement in it. We wanted this cement, but they in Poland they said no, that's much too much Plattenbau. That reminds us of the Russian influence, and we don't want that at all. So we softened it to make this material. Oh yeah, then the plantation is this is the inspiration for it, that every time there's a different flower blooming, so every 3 weeks is and then there's shrubs to give structure to that garden, and then there are trees to give some shade somehow, but they are dispersed, they're like a savanna. And here and there are trees, so because it's very cold, -40 in winter, and it's very hot and very dry in summer, so it's a very harsh climate. So I just show you all these reference materials that the garden will be like. Winter. And here we have an example of 2, sort of patchwork of different elements, and this is the plantation scheme. Thank you very much.